you.
I missed the Pledge of Allegiance here, so we better get that in here. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And Tracy, can you give us roll call real quick?
Sure. Counselor Desmond, Counselor Gates, Counselor Hughes,
Here.
Counselor Leahy,
Here.
Counselor Strobel,
Here.
Counselor Tindlish,
Here.
Mayor White.
Here, thank you very much. I was so excited, Brent, I got ahead of myself.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's all right. I noticed that, but I thought maybe things changed.
Yeah.
So thank you for allowing me just a few brief moments. My name is Brent Dodrell. I'm on the Estacada Chamber of Commerce, and we are your tourism arm, so to say, and we appreciate the financial partnership that you have with us and we have with you. So I just wanted to update you. It's been a very active spring for tourism as far as promotion in Estacada. We had put together an Estacada field guide that I think we made you aware of in the past, a little booklet that we tried to make available in Estacada and around, and we're still continuing to promote that. And on April 7th, AM Northwest, that's that's on KATU Channel 2, came out and recorded Michelle Jones with that Estacada field guide, and Michelle just did a great job. I think she's in the wrong business. I think she should be on TV. She just did a really good job promoting Estacada, all the things there is to see and to do in Estacada. That link has been shared with the office. It's on the city Facebook page as well. So if you haven't seen that, I hope you will. Another thing we were able to do is attend a media day with executives from the Oregon Department of Transportation and the National Forest Service, as well as statewide media outlets to tour what is closed up river. And through that, we not only learned a lot, but it produced a lot of great conversation with Christina and the media outlets. So from that, there were some more interviews that were that happened, as well as some filming that happened. And I was watching TV just the other night, and I saw the section that Fox 12 filmed with the growler and all that was happening there and the success they're having. So a lot of great publicity is happening for Estacada on the television through those different interviews. We're excited about that. The National Publication Media Tour is also going to be in Estacada in April, and we'll be showing them around again, as well as what's in Estacada to do and to see, and promote it as best we can. So all of those things happen because our executive director, Christina Richards, works really hard and is a great networker. And so she has some great working relationships that she's developed in her time, not just with Estacada Chamber, but even beyond that. And so she's developing some great networks statewide, particularly with Travel Oregon and Mount Hood territory. So we want you to know that we're inviting people to Estacada. So we anticipate that's going to pay some good dividends for our businesses. The other piece that we do is also supporting our chamber businesses. And my last little, I usually don't get that.
That's okay. We're gonna let you slide.
One last thing, on June 4th, we have a fundraiser. It's our one and only fundraiser. It's the Spring Gala. We do it every year, except for, of course, the last 2 years. So we want to invite you guys to come to that. It's going to be a great meal and an auction, and all of that is to raise money for the chamber. Thank you very much for your time.
Well, thank you, sir. All right. So next I have Tony Longdrew.
Perfect picture of Estacada standing together. Hello, councilors and mayor. My name is Tony Longdrew, and I am a resident of Estacada. But I am more than just a resident of this community. I am a dedicated community member. What I mean by that is not only do I reside in this great community, I make a safe haven in my community. My family lives in this community. My closest friends live in this community. I shop, I work, I serve in this community. Estacada is my home, and this is where I choose to continue to dedicate myself. I have and will continue to invest myself in its people as a former youth pastor, children's pastor as well, and currently a private practice mental health counselor, and hopefully soon serve in governmental leadership. Recent observations of some of the actions of certain council members has made me greatly concerned, not simply because of that single leader's approach in the way they conduct themselves as leadership, but also concerned for the direction of this great community moving forward. I have read recently online, Estacada is gonna change. We just have to get used to it. While that might be true, it doesn't mean that we must sit back and let our community go on the way of the status quo. Governmental leadership is a position of service and not self-seeking. It's a position inviting the dictation of all you who serve, not a position to cast one's own personal views, but the ones of those you lead. It's a position that must be held by those who understand and align themselves with the will of the majority they serve. Leadership must be willing to be transparent, allowing the desires and the goals of the people to take the front seat, even when it's in opposition to their own personal desires. The recent actions of some of the leadership in this council has shown just the opposite. Over the last year, I have witnessed consistent, petulant smiting on members of the community and community organizations who serve the community on a daily basis, with some statements made that appear to make individual community members seem belittled. It's time for council members to listen to the people of Estacada when they say, don't Portland our Estacada.
Hey, Tony, just a few minutes there. We're almost into your time, so we're gonna have to.
Change is inevitable, and a healthy change is even better. Change that fosters small town community relationships and interactions, communities, organizations, and services. It is time for the voices of the people to be heard again, to trust its leadership, to consider them. This is why I believe it is time that others like myself run for city council to remove those who have shown they don't consider the desires of the majority of this community, to keep the small community culture and protect it like it's a golden child, because currently it is dying, is it a dying light, and we need to protect it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right, I have no more in front of me at this point, so we're gonna move along, and then we'll have a second chance here towards the end for the next one. We are now at the consent agenda. Before we move on, I'd like to take one thing out of the consent agenda. The OLCC licensing application for Timbertown Grub. I want to move that down to council business because I want to have a small discussion on it before we.
They actually withdrew the application.
Oh, they did?
They weren't ready to proceed with that at this time.
Okay, well, I guess I'm ahead of the game. Thank you.
Mayor, can we still put that to the agenda down below, just so we can discuss at a time, so that if there's anything we come up with it, that they can be aware of it when they apply?
Sure, yeah, we can do that. Is that okay to do that? Just bring it down, because there's other things I want to discuss about it as we, go on.
Yeah, I would think I think that's fine, other than we no longer have application because they came and picked it up, so,
Oh, yeah, it won't be
There.
about that. It'll be
Okay.
about-
okay.
Okay, thank you. All right, that said, we have the March 28, 2022 council minutes to approve. You've all had a chance to read that over. Do I have a motion on the floor?
Move to approve.
I just also wanted to note that there's the contract approval that is on there. Do you have that?
I don't have that on my copy, but I picked my copy up last week. so-
Oh, before we printed it, yes, so
I'm in my
there,
paper copy.
Okay, so we should have reprinted that for you, and I neglected to do that, but there is also a contract approval for the directional drilling pump station on
Okay.
Espinoza that has been added into that
Great.
packet last Friday.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
So you've all heard what's on the consent agenda. Do I have a motion on the floor?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, I have a first. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a first and second. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. All right. Moving right along, we are at department and committee reports. So I will start off with Charity.
Okay, so I got to attend the C4 meeting. And this was my first time attending C4, so it was really kind of new and exciting for me. Kind of just got to sit back and take it all in. But so a lot of information was being discussed about kind of the homeless issues that are, arising and have become more and more problematic in Clackamas County. And so really what this was basically an hour and a half of all of the different, mayors from the various cities within Clackamas County, also talking with I think it was Oregon City Police Chief and a couple of other members that have been really ensconced into homelessness, counselors, social workers, all sharing their input as to what we can do as a county to address this. And it was kind of more of a workshop style. So they were just bouncing off a bunch of ideas and, about where shelters could be placed, et cetera, such as churches or things like that, and local church bodies that were reaching out to help with these, with these issues. And so that's going to be discussed further as these C4 meetings continue, but I think they're really trying to find realistic solutions as to, what we can do. So anyway, that was discussed. And as well, since I don't know all of the backstory with the toll that they've been talking about on 205, but that's still an issue. C4 committee is still very much against it, and they're still trying to push it through. And C4 is basically kind of at their wit's end, and and so there's some push and pull going on with that. So I'll have to catch up as to what all of that history with that toll and all of the past communication that's been going on between C4 and ODOT and so on. So yeah, that's all I have from C4. It was kind of more of a learning experience this time around, but yeah, cool stuff. Just like, big stuff.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that,
Yeah.
Charity, for you pulling in on the secondary on that. That was
Yeah.
great. So I get the first taste of the C4.
Right.
All right, Joel.
So the DEC talked about a couple things. First one is kind of exciting. We're actually going to have the 4th of July parade this year with the theme of, good golly, I just told you what it was. Remember when. That's what it is. Remember when. So that's the theme for the 4th of July, and they're talking about having having for the grand marshals to go to every kind of like nonprofit and community service group and kind of different groups in the city to try to pull grand marshal from each one. So that's kind of what they're looking at this year, but they didn't land on that for sure at the time. So I think that's going to come back around as we get closer. So that's something to look forward to. And then the second part was they're discussing about the vacant buildings in town, and we should expect that they're going to bring something to the council here in the near future to potentially put a charge on vacant buildings, a monthly charge on the vacant buildings. They're looking at about $100 a month for a charge for vacant buildings to try to get them to be filled. And that's mainly because they have some concerns about some of the buildings that have been here for years, and that people are buying buildings and then making it difficult to rent them. So they want to do something. And then the second half of that was maintenance. They want to put some sort of propose some sort of ordinance or something for us to develop for maintenance, the requirement on these buildings. They're upkept and that way they don't, like, especially like down here on Main Street, they don't cause problems for the neighbors and things. So, so we should be expecting something like that to be coming forward in the near future. And that was it.
Well, that's good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Paul?
Nothing for me.
Okay, Jerry?
Yeah, so the DEI committee met today in a workshop, working on their goals. It was a really productive meeting. They're really excited about about coming to the council workshop on the 25th. We have scheduled with them. And the one thing that we wanted to make sure is everybody is familiarize yourself with their equity lens, because that's what this meeting is going to be about, is, any questions that we have. Councilor Strobel has sent in some questions that they've been going over, but he's the only counselor that they got any feedback from on the equity lens. So the equity lens was sent to us in an email a little while back, but it should be fairly easy to find. But just familiarize yourself with the equity lens. Any questions that you have, that's the time to ask, because they really do want our feedback. I mean, I'm there every meeting, so they get my feedback every time. So, but more than just me, they want all of our feedback. So if you guys have any questions, that's the time. And again, this workshop is specifically about the equity lens. So yeah. And then Arts Commission met. They've got a lot of amazing events going on, some collaborations with other committees that are going to be coming up. They have at least one thing set up, basically almost every other month. I think they have an event set up that they're going to be doing. So yeah, just a lot of excitement and a lot of good things to come.
Great. Okay, thank you, Jerry. I don't have anything tonight, but have we talked with the fire department about presenting? Kind of give us an idea what they're up to, because like I said, remember, it was really hard to get into their meeting.
It was hard. I've talked to them a little bit, but the chief is out of town on training for a couple more weeks, or at least another week. But I might invite a board member to come in and give us an update for the next meeting also. I'll make a note of that.
Thank you. All right. So our city manager's report.
Okay. I got an email today from the equity officer at Clackamas County, and their Clackamas, Multnomah, and Washington have an equity, I think it's equity officer. Equity and inclusion officer. And those three counties, Metro's DEI director, and some cities are co-hosting an event on this coming Monday, which is April 18th, for elected officials in our region. It sounded like we could get, well, at first it sounded like maybe only one ticket, but possibly two. If anybody's interested in attending, they're having a speaker whose name is John Powell, talking about equity in our region. And it isn't at the Expo Center, so kind of a jaunt over to the other side of town. And it's from 5:30 to 7:30. They're going to have some refreshments and have a chance for the elected officials to visit together and then hear from the speaker. So if anybody's interested in attending that, let me know and I'll see how many tickets that we can get. I have a meeting that night with the Clackamas County Public Health Advisory Council, so I will not be able to attend, but I think it's really geared more for electeds anyway. So let me know if Monday night is available for you. And then wanted to just give an update that we're working with ODOT on the redesign of that bump out there, whether they need to still do that ADA ramp. We met with them today with Kurt McLeod and Don DeRosia, and I met with them, and it sounds like I didn't understand all the things they were talking about, but it was engineer talk, and it sounds like they will be able to kind of realign it more, push out a little bit without making a huge bump out, because there's still it's a sweeping turn right there. But so that we won't have to have them, and I may have misunderstood them. They wanted to purchase that piece of property, that little tiny strip that would cut back into the landscape. And now when we were standing out there talking, it kind of sounded like, well, they were going to buy that, but the sidewalk would still have stayed in the same place. So I may have totally overcomplicated it. But the good point is, Kurt talked to them. They're going to work at making it look more like where it'll match the rest of the street when we do that next year. So that's in process. And then Thursday night at the Planning Commission meeting, Taylor brought up with the Planning Commission an idea that she has had, and I am extremely supportive of, about having either quarterly or maybe 3 times a year, because time goes by so fast. We were thinking quarterly, having just kind of an open house type of a, come talk to staff. We'll have about projects or questions you may have, just something that's open, easily accessible to the public. She was thinking, and she could add some more later if she wants, but like maybe having it prior to a council meeting on one time, another time maybe having it just prior to a planning commission meeting, or maybe we could have it like afternoon, early evening, where we might have, we could have, I'm envisioning it as maybe some tables set up if there's committees that are wanting to do some public outreach. They could come and talk to people. People would just be able to come in and not be at a formal meeting, but get to know staff, ask those questions that I don't like to ask a question that in public, out in front of everybody, if I think, oh, I don't know, and if I should, that might be a silly question. And of course, we always say there's no silly questions, go ahead and ask, but just a more casual environment where people could feel free to come and ask questions, find out what's going on, understand processes better. And so at some point, I might like to take it to a more formal level even and have the, like a community school, I can't remember what they call those, but when you have like for maybe 6 months, one night a month, you have a group of people that comes in and they'll learn about, what elected officials do and what our committees do and what the, get an update from the public works director or the economic development planning director, and it just kind of like present operations of the city so people understand better. And then they're kind of like gearing up towards maybe they want to be on a committee or maybe they want to run for, for city council. And so that might be something more formal that we head towards in the future. But at this point, we're kind of just thinking about getting some on the calendar for an informal time. People can come and ask questions or gather information. And so just kind of wanted to share that idea with you that Taylor has come up with. And I think it is a good idea. And I think that is all that I have to share.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Mayor,
Yeah.
before we move on, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So one of the things I was wondering about, something we haven't done because of COVID, but I think it'd be a good idea, and Mayor, you tell me what you think. If we get the all the staff and maybe the council, or possibly even the committees all together, maybe not necessarily a public meeting, but it gives us a chance to all meet each other because most of us haven't met each other in person. I mean, I've been on for what, 1.5 years now, and I met her for the first time tonight in person. So it might be a good chance because we don't get a chance to do that so much. And so get a chance to kind of mingle and get a chance to know each other and maybe have like a dinner or something from between all the committees and council and something to get to know Unite or something.
That
So,
sounds like fun.
And I think if you remember, we used to do the barbecues and everything on the front lawn. It gave us an opportunity to talk with the citizens and all of us as well. I think that's a great idea. So I think
Thank you.
maybe that'd be easier for us all to really get in touch with each other and know what we're up to. So thank you. All right. I am now going to move into the public hearing. So I'm now close the city council meeting and open the public hearing. Do any members of the council wish to abstain or declare ex parte contact? Anybody? Okay. The council will now hear the staff report on the proposal. Is there any, go ahead, Taylor, it's you.
That is me. All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Uh-oh. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Okay, great.
you turn up a little bit.
Can you hear me better now?
A little bit.
Okay, sorry.
It's gone.
Okay, can you see the PowerPoint there?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Okay, so this is ordinance 2022-004, amending Title 16, the Development Code. And it's just amending one particular section of the code, which is 16.124.040, regarding annexation applications. The Planning Commission did have their hearing on this proposal actually just on Thursday, so this is a really quick turnaround. And so your decision tonight is final unless appealed, of course. So here's the text of the proposed amendment. You all saw a previous version of this that was very different, and I think I said in that meeting that we already knew it was going to be different because we talked to the county and yeah, got feedback. So this is the section of code that tells us what an annexation application needs to include when it's submitted. Item B on that list, it's a list of, I don't know, maybe 10 items that they have to submit. Item B requires them to submit this, a legal description. So it's like a narrative description, basically a description of the outline of the property and where it is in the county, in the taxing district. And then that has to come in along with a matching illustration showing the boundaries. And it needs to match up with the description that you submit. So the wording that's scratched out in red is what we're proposing to replace with the wording here in green. Basically the substantial change here is that we are referring to the section of the Oregon Revised Statutes that dictates what the state needs in order to process a taxing district boundary change. So that is ORS 308.225. And that is the only change being proposed with this ordinance. So a little background on why we're proposing this change. Currently, the annexation process goes like this: from council approval. After you approve an annexation, staff will submit this notice to the Department of Revenue, DOR, noticing them of a change in the taxing district boundary. So obviously, if a property is coming into city limits, it's going to be taxed according to city taxes rather than county taxes. Quite often, DOR will respond to the boundary change notice with it's technically called a disapproval. They disapprove the boundary change notice and they give us a list of changes that need to be made in order to bring that legal description and matching illustration into compliance with ORS 308.225. And that section of ORS, by the way, was included in the attachment Exhibit 2 that came along with this ordinance, which is a document that DOR published that basically explains that section of the ORS and talks about how cities or jurisdictions are supposed to comply with it. So anyway, we receive a lot of annexation applications that have these legal descriptions and illustrations that, as far as we can tell, as far as staff can tell, so usually that's myself or Ben, it appears to meet the requirements of DOR, but we're not surveyors, and we've not apparently been able to catch these things that DOR is going to catch upon their review. So what then happens is that we get this denial or disapproval from DOR, and then the burden is on the city to revise and resubmit the description or illustration until they do accept the boundary change. At that point, because the council has already approved the annexation and has already finalized the annexation through resolution, normally we've been doing that at the earliest meeting after you approve the annexation. We'll bring the resolution back to you the next council meeting for you to finalize the annexation. So at that point, the annexation is put into effect, and now the city is stuck with fixing these documents in order to satisfy DOR. So, right, I just explained that. So basically, one of the the thing that's important about this amendment is that it will provide a sort of legal backbone for the city to move forward, applying conditions of approval to every annexation, saying that DOR needs to accept the tax district boundary change before the city puts the annexation into effect. So the council can approve the annexation. I think I show this on the next slide. So the council can approve the annexation first, and then if there needs to be revisions to that legal description or the illustration, then the applicant and staff will work together, work with DOR to get those approved, and then only after that, the council will put that annexation into effect by resolution. So this change, basically, I'm trying to show on this slide the changes to the annexation process are in green here. I'm sorry if anyone is colorblind, but I'll kind of explain them out. So the changes to the process will look like this. We already have, obviously, the applicant first submits the annexation application. We already have staff then reviews the application for completion. Completion review is basically just us going through a checklist of all of the items, according to the applicable section of the code, all of the items that are going to be needed for us to deem that application complete. So that stays the same. At the same time that we are doing completion review, we can go ahead and submit a preliminary notice to DOR. So in my research that I went ahead and did for this whole ordinance proposal, I found out that DOR will actually let jurisdictions submit a notice of a proposed tax district boundary change before any council has approved that change. We can go ahead and say, hey, basically say, we're thinking about approving this annexation. Does this legal description and illustration meet your, or the ORS section, your needs for the boundary change? And DOR will go ahead and review it and send back feedback. If they would not approve that, they'll send us back the things that we would need to change in order for them to approve it. So that is great, because that means that we can go ahead and submit those materials to them before the application even comes to council. That'll give the applicant time, if there are changes needed, that will give the applicant time to get those changes together, work with staff. We were always, make ourselves available to applicants as much as we're really reasonably able to. And then, hopefully we would get that resolved before it comes to council. But if not, then when it does come to council, as long as all of the other, other criteria are met, then the council would approve the annexation, and they could apply a condition of approval saying, yes, we allow you to annex, but this annexation will not go into effect until DOR accepts that tax district boundary change. Once DOR does accept that tax district boundary change, we would then just go ahead, and that would trigger staff to bring the resolution back to council, which finalizes that annexation. Hopefully that was a clear enough explanation, but I'll take questions at the end too. Oh, that's too far forward. Okay, so before I go into approval criteria, oh no, okay, we're good. So in terms of what you need to decide on tonight, this is technically a legislative amendment and decision that you're making. So the approval criteria that you need to consider in order to amend the code are, does the change comply with the applicable statewide planning goals and our comprehensive plan goals? Those, as you probably know by now, line up pretty well. This particular section of code really is not applicable to most of the goals that are in our comp plan or that are part of the statewide planning goals. All of those are detailed out in the staff report if you read through that. But basically just explaining how they're not applicable. But the ones that are applicable or that we just needed to make sure that we were meeting requirements are for citizen involvement and agency coordination. That's basically making sure that we're meeting the public noticing requirements and coordinating with affected and relevant agencies, which we did, and I'll talk about that. And then in our development code, it basically sets out the procedure for doing this kind of change. So a legislative amendment needs to be initiated either by the Planning Commission or the City Council. If you'll remember, a few meetings back, you all gave staff the go-ahead to work on drafting up this ordinance. And then, yeah, procedurally, the code lays out how we actually go about administering the change. So, and then, yeah, talking about that agency coordination. Obviously, we want to coordinate with the Department of Revenue, and have been going back and forth with them plenty every time we get an annexation. But we did give them notice of this proposed change, and they responded with a statement that they did not have any concerns with the change. The DEI committee also got a copy of the notice and the proposed ordinance. They, at one of their recent meetings, decided that none of the committee members had any concerns about it. And then agencies that were also noticed were the Department of Land Conservation and Development, and also Clackamas County. Several departments at Clackamas County, the Surveyor's Department, Development Engineering, and also Planning and Zoning, received notice of the application or the proposal and did not respond with any concerns either. So with all of that, I put some motion options here, but I think I want to open it up for questions if anyone wants me to go back through anything.
Okay. You've heard what Taylor's presented so far, or do we have any?
Quick question. So the short question is, the purpose of this was to streamline the process of annexation, to reduce staff time and avoid any, prolonged issues after approval, correct?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it really streamlines necessarily, but it definitely will help us avoid issues that we have currently struggled with. And in terms of staff time, yes. But the other thing is that one of those issues is that if a property comes in and, for example, hooks up to city services, or especially if they come in and develop with like a subdivision or something, that's city services that are being provided without the tax revenue coming in appropriately. So it's both a concern about staff time, also, mostly just staff time, and then the taxing issue. We don't want to have properties being not taxed when they should be taxed, basically.
Okay, I think I got it.
Okay. Paul?
So with this change, we are we requiring that the legal description be certified by a surveyor, or is that only if is it ODR, if they kick it back, or the DOR, if they kick it back after like the initial preliminary look that they get?
Yeah, so the legal description is currently, well, actually, so that's another thing that's kind of fuzzy about the language. I could reshare my screen here. Let's do that. So the current code language is a legal description together with an illustration depicting the boundaries of the legal description, or a boundary survey compiled from record documents or field survey, certified by a so we currently must have the illustration certified by a registered engineer or surveyor. Because of the way that it's written, it is not super clear whether or not the legal description is also supposed to be certified by a registered engineer or surveyor. So that is something that is also resolved with this. Actually, I guess actually that still isn't resolved, but so technically, okay, sorry to backtrack, but technically someone could argue, because of the way that it's worded, someone could argue that their legal description doesn't have to be certified by a registered engineer, but their illustration definitely has to be certified by a registered engineer or surveyor, and that was already true before this change. Does that answer your question?
Well, as you were speaking prior, you had said that we've got the opportunity, you've learned through this process that we've got the opportunity to submit this to the DOR, like a preliminary application. And then they may come back and give some feedback. And then at that point, would the applicant have to have a surveyor come in and do the certification? Or if they come back and say no issues, are they good to go with the legal description that they've put forth?
I see what you're saying. Yeah, if DOR came back and said, needed them to make changes, the applicant could just, like, if they were able to go ahead and make those changes themselves, or with the help of staff, without involving a surveyor or engineer, that would be fine with us. Because the important thing is that it needs to meet the requirements of that section of ORS. So I don't know if this is what you were getting at, but if it seems like something where you could not have it be certified by a registered engineer as long as it meets the ORS, I don't think from the city standpoint we really care, because we just want to make sure that the tax boundary change gets accepted, is really what that code section is ensuring.
Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, that kind of does. It seems like the point of this whole thing is in that last line that you've got in here, that whatever they submit needs to meet the requirements set forth in ORS 308.225.
Correct.
Is that correct? So from what you were saying then, and kind of the confusion, that I brought up here, do you feel like what you have put together, what is written here now is the amendment change? Does it solve that? Is this clear enough then, or does it need rework to become more clear from that standpoint? Because as I read it now, it's saying that a registered engineer or surveyor must certify either the legal description or the illustration on here, but that may not be the case.
Right. I don't know if ORS 308.225 requires an engineer or surveyor to certify the illustration. And I guess I just left that in there because it's what we already have in the code, and was thinking, we're already working with, that's already, a requirement. We just need to make sure that's already a requirement, and the things that are being submitted are falling short of the state's requirement. So if we're gonna make the submittal requirements more strict, it didn't seem necessary or really relevant to take out that part, but I guess I don't know. I want to say maybe it would be fine to take out that part, requiring engineer or surveyor certification, but that is something that I think we would want to ask probably like the county surveyor about, or other planners at the county, just to get a feel for, would there be unintended consequences of removing that requirement? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Joel, go ahead.
This kind of bounces off a little bit off of his question. First of all, is it something that we can require them to, before they submit an application, to have this part worked out with the DOR? So that, because when I was looking at your process there and what you've talked about in the past till now, I don't really see where that reduces staff time, because you're still doing all the work with them. If they reject it, you're still having to go back and forth with them. So if you want to save staff time, then they should just come with it already approved by the DOR. Also, as I've said in the past, I'm a stickler for making sure that our codes and ordinances are very specific and exact and have a purpose behind everything we do with them. And it sounds like there's a lot of question in what we should and shouldn't happen there. So I'm wondering if this might be a little preliminary to consider for approval of change until we can get some of those questions answered. Something for us to consider. But there's an open questions in there, and I don't think we should have some of those open questions like that in the code, especially if we're making a change. Just make a change once and make sure we're sure about everything that's in there. But I think the biggest thing to ask is, and from what I understood before, the whole purpose of bringing this forward was it was taking up a lot of staff time, and you guys wanted to correct that. And so I think this doesn't really sound like it's going to correct that staff time unless we get them to come with us an already approved from the DOR description. If that means it has to be certified by an engineer or a surveyor to get that done, then that would be one way to do it, and make sure they come with that certification ahead of time before it's submitted, or have a way to connect them with the DOR and have them work that out before they turn it and have an approval from the DOR as part of the application process, is what my take would be on it.
Yeah, that would be great if that was an option. I was reading the information pamphlet, that document that they provided that I think was Exhibit 2. And it sounds like DOR processes boundary changes that are submitted by, like a jurisdiction has to submit the boundary change, right? Because they're the governing body that is initiating the boundary change. I would be really surprised if they had a process for a member of the public to submit about their proposed boundary change to them without it going somehow through a local jurisdiction like a city or a county or a district first. And I think, I don't know, I'm just thinking about why that would be, because it would be really nice for us in terms of our staff time, for the reasons that you said, if they could get that fleshed out with DOR just directly.
Well, if it's certified by a surveyor, do they accept that as is? Because I think you'd mentioned that before, that if it's actually certified by a surveyor, then that's what the DOR accepts, correct?
No, yeah. So the pattern is that DOR tends to accept those more often or more quickly, the ones that are certified by a surveyor. But there have been plenty of instances where a registered engineer or surveyor had drafted up the illustration and stamped it, and we've submitted that with our notice, and they came back, DOR comes back saying, oh, you need to make these changes. So yeah, that was also my thinking, and so that was why the first iteration of this was, oh well, maybe DOR just needs a recorded survey or a recorded plat, because then the county had accepted it already, and but there were issues with that, so.
Okay.
I think that actually clears it up for me a little bit there, Taylor. Because it sounds like the issue isn't necessarily the certification of the legal description or the certification of the illustration. It's basically what the DOR accepts or doesn't accept. And what you're proposing essentially is that if the DOR does not accept the what's submitted as a legal description, then your changes here take the onus off the city to resolve it and puts it back on the applicant. Is that what we're looking at here?
That's right. That's
Okay.
right. And it gives the city the legal authority in our code to postpone the adoption of that annexation until DOR has accepted the change and changed the taxing district. We don't usually, I haven't had an appeal happen while I've been here, but it wouldn't be unheard of for someone to, take a legal issue with the city if we imposed such a condition of approval without having a code section to support that condition of approval, and tried to, the council approved their annexation, and then we still didn't have their taxing district change approved with DOR, so we say, oh, we can't actually put this into effect yet, even though it was approved. We can't put it into effect until you get this through DOR. That person could, I think, it's my understanding is that person could say, well, what's your legal authority to halt this when the council has already approved it? And so having a condition of approval in there and having that condition backed by code, in my, albeit, somewhat brief experience, is just a safer way for us to do this, and will prevent us from having, properties that get annexed but don't get taxed properly after being annexed.
I just have one thought, and I think that this discussion is clearing it up a lot, but I think it doesn't necessarily streamline the process at the front end of it, because there's going to be, Taylor's going to be going back and forth with the applicant and getting this figured out, especially if it's not an applicant who is like a developer who's really good and got all their ducks in a row with this. If it's just an individual trying to annex in the city for whatever reason they need to do that, she's still going to be going back and forth with them. But then once it's approved, it'll be done, versus right now, this drags on, for, I think it's been sometimes up to a year or more, trying to go back and forth with planning and DOR to get that finalized and approved, where the city will actually be able to receive taxes on that property and the whole process is finished. So this may add another step or two to the initial process, but then once it's done, it's going to be done, and it won't be dragging on out to try to close the book on that. So I think it's a great, it's a confusing process to a certain degree, but I think this is going to help to resolve that issue.
Thank you for that clarification.
Mhm.
Appreciate
That helps.
that. Okay, any more questions for Taylor? All right, Taylor, go ahead.
So did you want to see, I can pull up the motion
Motions.
options here, if that's where we're at. Okay.
Okay, so we have three options up. Move to approve ordinance 2022-004 as presented. We have moved to approve ordinance 2022-004 with the following changes. And we have moved to deny ordinance 2022-004 because of blank issues. So, all right, you've seen the motions up there. We're gonna move along to the next part of this, and then we'll get to making the motion. You wanna make the motion in this, we're gonna do it in city council, right?
Correct.
Okay, so all of you take a good look at that. Well, it's down now, so.
You memorize that.
back up there.
Yeah. All right, is there any correspondence regarding this application, Taylor?
Other than the statements of no concerns that I mentioned, no.
Okay, great, thank you. I will now read a statement about the evidence presented at the hearing. As an issue which may be the basis for appeal to LUBA must be raised prior to the close of the record at the final eventuary hearing on the specific application. Such issues shall be raised with sufficient specificity so as to afford LUBA and the parties an adequate opportunity to respond to each issue. Failure of an issue to be raised at the hearing or in person or by letter, or failure to provide sufficient specificity to afford LUBA and the parties an adequate opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to LUBA on that issue. Okay, does any member of the audience wish to speak on this ordinance? I'm not seeing any hands raised on that. Okay. Does staff have any additional information they'd like to give us? Okay.
Nothing.
At this time, I will now close the public hearing and reopen the city council. You've seen the motions up on the screen. Can I have a motion on the floor?
I move to approve ordinance 2022-004 as presented.
Okay, I have a first.
I'll second.
And I have a first and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much for that. Okay.
A little side note, I just
Yeah.
want to tell you how much better you've gotten at saying specificity.
It only took me 8 years. That's true enough. That's true enough. That's the hardest word to say for me. It's like spaghetti, you know, when you were a kid. We are now at the council business portion of this. So first on the list, I have Portland General Electric franchise agreement discussion.
Okay. Well, this won't be quite as brain bending, I don't think. Perfect. Thank you. Okay. All right. So we have had a public facilities use request from the farmer's market. And typically those are just staff will review them and approve or deny the request based on whether they, it fits the criteria for being a public event or whatever. But this, because it is, the farmer's market is requesting to use that triangle parking lot over there for the summer to run their market. It's because it's such an extended period of time. When I talked to the mayor, we wanted to see if there's consensus of the council that that would be a good use of the parking lot. And just to kind of make a few comments, they would have, they're up against the clock because they're ready to start next month and they need to get their vendors lined up and stuff. She said that they would ideally have started the process a little while ago, but they weren't made aware of their need to find a new location until shortly before they reached out to us. And so we have, I tried to work with them initially because my vision was like they're closing off the parking lot, the whole thing's full of tents. And I'm like, well, where is everybody going to park? You know, how it's kind of, the highway's right there. It's hard to cross Main. How is this all going to work? But they've put a lot of thought into it. And we reached out to the fire district to see about their grassy area, but they're doing every other Saturday, they do training over there at the tower and it kind of spills out into that whole area. So that wasn't going to be feasible. They had looked at I guess it's the Reliance parking lot. It's right across from the post office. But that's kind of a used parking lot. Councilor Litke had suggested closing that street right there on Zobrist between 2nd and 3rd, because there's not a lot of parking lots parking entrances there to affect people. So that was considered, and I did toss that out to them. They said they're open to anything right now, but they really feel that parking lot is the best place for them. The Harvest Market Square they considered, where they'd been before, but sometimes there's other events that take place in the summer that like to utilize that area also. And it was difficult for their vendors to load and unload at that spot. So she sent me the site plan, and it actually, they will end up having 21 parking spaces open. I didn't even know there was that many parking spaces over there, but they will have, she says 21 parking spaces open, not including the 2 handicap spaces, because they're going to put their vendors along the outside edge of it. There'll still be the sidewalk and the landscape strip between them and the highway, but they'll go along the outside. And I think I forwarded that site plan to you. So when I saw that, I was much more confident about it, that people will be able to pull in, park, do their shopping and go. I also reached out to Milwaukee because they have a farmer's market that the city partners with them and lets them use their downtown parking area. And that they've been using that same lot for over 22 years. It's a very successful program. They did say it does get hectic down there. That's one of their busiest times, but people, it's not like going to an event where you go and stay a few hours. It's usually people coming and going. You go to the market and then you leave. And so it has worked out okay for them. Their farmers market has a grant program and they do some donations to, I'm not sure what other programs they donate to. Our farmers market actually supports the food bank. And so I feel like they're a good, trustworthy organization to be able to partner with in that regard. If that parking lot gets quite a lot of use during the week, I've been meaning to watch on the weekend if people park there, like to go to work, but they also could use on the weekend, the city hall parking spaces here would be open because city hall is closed. So I also noted in in the council goals, the engage with the community goal, facilitate community interaction. One of that was to partner with local nonprofits. We didn't list the food bank in there, but that I think would be meeting one of those goals. And then create a downtown experience, develop and promote existing downtown events, create new unique events that will attract people to Estacada. And I think bringing the farmers market back down here definitely would do that, as well as the sustainability goal that is new for us. Providing farm to table and farm to home, whatever other kind of products they might be making would meet your goals. So I just wanted to, let you guys discuss it a little bit. I'll stop talking. And I think it's a great idea now that I've gotten more information about it. But it is something that I'd like to see if there's a consensus on the council about that.
Quick question. First of all, is the blue area, the big long blue area, is that in the grass area over there, but they're looking at putting the vendors on?
Yes, I think it's the grass, and it might be, is that just a driving area or is there parking spaces there? I think it's just a driving, that's where I'm not sure now.
Well, from what I can see where some of the parking spaces would be taken and things, but I couldn't tell if that was grass area or not.
Yeah, I think it's mostly that grass
Is it-
strip.
Yeah, it looks
Yeah,
like
okay,
that.
that is grass. So would kind of be curious how that would affect that, but my concern still stands even with it, because one, if they're doing training, the volunteer firefighters will be taking a lot of those spots. And so that's something to consider. And so their parking will be reduced. The fire department was concerned because of training they're going to do. So when this thing gets filled, they're going to start parking towards that area anyways. So my concerns still stand. I still think that another option, such as what we presented with that road, it has a lot of parking areas around it, between parking lots, on-street parking. It's not blocking any roadways. I think it's much safer overall. We can work with them, as a council, we can waive the street closure fee if need be, or something to help them. But I just, in this one here, if they're on the grass, there's a potential that that much traffic could kill the grass or cause issues there, but that's the lowest of my concerns. The biggest issue would be extending the parking out into an area where there's not a lot of parking. And especially when the fire department's already worried about literally right next to it. I mean, this is less than half a block away, where they're already concerned about people using that grass because of the training as it's going. So you can see where my concerns would extend off of their concerns, plus again, the parking issue.
Okay.
I think it'd be a great visibility spot for that area that can pull in traffic, pull in people, have a reason to stop in Estacada. So from that standpoint, it seems great. I think Councilor Litke brings up some good ideas, but I would want to hear from the fire department how, if those are their concerns as well too.
Mhm.
If we could run it by them, if they're
Okay.
fine with it, but I'd say great. If they've got those concerns,
Mhm.
then I think those are valid concerns that we need to weigh out with
Okay.
this.
Charity?
I really love the farmer's market, and I think that area, that spot is awesome. But yeah, the parking is a concern. So like Counselor Strobel had mentioned, I'd really like to get the feedback from the fire department. And if we can, if they're saying, yeah, that's actually going to be difficult, we may have to tell people to move or whatever. Maybe we can have some signs directing people that come into town, like parking over here for farmers market parking, just to direct people if it's kind of off the beaten path. But I want to see that happen, but I'm just concerned about the parking is my only thing.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I absolutely love the idea, just on a pure visibility standpoint, being there rather than, tucked in down between Second and Third on Zobrist, where there's no visibility from, anybody outside of anybody driving past Estacada. I do love the visibility standpoint of it being right there. And I would like to know if there is a concern from the fire department on, on their every other Saturday days where they're doing their drills.
Okay.
And then my only question, I had actually two, was the fire department was one of them. I think that's very important that we don't block access, but the other one was, if we open this up to nonprofit, then we have to open this up to all nonprofit, because it can't just be the farmer's market. We're going to have to look at all the other groups and what they may be having coming up, and they may ask us, and then where do we draw the line? Where do we say, oh, well, that was a different circumstance. We can't really do that. And that would be my biggest fear, is that we are equal to everyone. They all must have the same opportunity. It's all about, we talked equality here. We have to make it equal across the board. And that would be my biggest fear.
Mhm.
So.
Does anybody else
That's
have
a good-
other feedback
that's a
on
good
that? Because
point.
that was a concern that,
That is a good point.
That's a great one.
but it seems like the farmer's market is a benefit to the community in general, where it's not, I don't know, we let other, like the arts commission will shut down the streets and do summer celebration, because that's a very inclusive type of an event. And so I kind of see the farmer's market that way, where it's something that the entire community could use. And I was worried about the same thing, though. Are there other nonprofits that we would be neglecting if we let them use it? Like, for instance, I had already told them the chamber is using part of that parking lot on May 7th because they're doing their shred event. And so that's something that staff just approved, that because it's a one-day thing. It's just in the morning of May 7th. They were like, yeah, let's go ahead and use that. That's for the community. And so can you guys want to weigh in on, can you think of what are the unforeseen things that are going to come up that we're going to go, oh, we set a bad precedent? Or is there? Is this
Well, no,
maybe
I
not?
think it's not about setting a bad precedent. I think it's about starting off on the right note.
Mhm.
We need to make sure that we're looking at this in the future. Like I said, farmers markets are great. I've been to the one in Milwaukee. Don't get me
Mhm.
wrong. It's wonderful. And I bought stuff there, and I'm really into that. But I have to look past that. And we're looking at all the groups. And there are several now nonprofits in our area that are all asking for places to have their events. I mean, all the time.
Mhm.
And where are we going to say, okay, where do we draw the line? We let one do it. We don't let the other one do it. We wouldn't be
Mhm.
setting the right precedent at that point. I want to make sure we do that from now on, that we look at
Mhm.
all the options. We can help the farmer's market find a place. And like you said, we can reduce fees or whatever it takes, but put them in a spot that won't, be a problem like that.
On that side too, I mean, it's not just a precedent of it. There's actually a legal standing there where we can't tell one organization no and a nonprofit one no, one yes. That would be an unbalanced approach, and they could
Mhm.
technically, a nonprofit could take us to court for it, saying, well, they let them do, but not us. And it doesn't just mean nonprofit in our city. It could be any nonprofit. It has to be open to the public. Public is everywhere. And so it doesn't matter who wants to come in. We have to be allowed to offer that there as well. So like you said, it's setting a precedent, but also there's a legal balance to as well.
Mhm.
So.
Why would we be saying no in the future, though? I mean, if this occurs, if this is successful, if the fire department says, you know, that's great, we have no concerns. If the farmer's market has a banner year there, and it works for the city, if it works for everybody, it could set things on a positive route as well too. This could be an area where nonprofits could go. This could be an area where other people could use this land. So why not allow something like that to happen? Would there be a way to set this thing up so that this would be on a trial basis? You know, we do it this time, and if there are issues, then we know
Mhm.
if there are issues or
And as long
not.
as we make it inclusive.
Mhm.
I don't think
Mhm.
that is an issue. I mean, I'm all game for it, but we've got to open it up to everybody. And even if it's on a trial basis, let's be fair.
Mhm.
Sure.
On that same basis though, what if the next group wants the entire parking lot? Are we gonna write a whole set of requirements around that and spend the time to dictate what can and can't happen there? And I mean, you can see where it starts to get complicated.
Sure,
If
sure.
they want the whole parking lot next time, then where's the parking gonna go? It comes back to the parking and safety issue.
Mhm.
So like I said, it's just because of where it's at and because it's right by the fire department, there's limited stuff and there's training. I think that's opening a door that would be really hard to shut later. And so I think having a precedence, it would be easier to identify spots in our city where we can help nonprofits to hold events. We work with them on, and I completely agree with Jerry on the exposure piece. Maybe we can find a better spot that fits that area. That's not as much of a problem, still gets exposure, but we got to consider the safety piece there and the ongoing forward there. If it's easier to open a door than it is to close one. And I can see how that can cascade. That was my concern from the beginning.
Mhm.
So.
Any more on this?
I'm thinking about the equity piece, and I feel like if another nonprofit came and it wasn't an unsafe situation, I feel like that we would say, yeah, go ahead and use that. And then, but is there a nonprofit that would have something going on where it's like on an ongoing basis, where they'd be holding some kind of event? I think it's kind of unlikely. Like the Art Back is going to be painting a mural on the last mural on the Dollar General. And so they want to shut down the street right there. They wanted to go into the intersection, but we couldn't come up with a good enough. It would affect the ODOT with people coming off the highway if we tried to close that intersection at 3rd. So they're just or 4th. So they're just going to stay on 4th Street there. And that's probably going to be approved. I mean, pretty much anybody, any nonprofit, we try to accommodate the best that we can. This one is just unusual because it's an extended period of time, but it would just be, we would approve it for just this summer, and then we could evaluate it at the end of the summer and see how did that work? Did we get complaints because people couldn't park or, but could contact the fire department in the morning or the fire district and see if they have concerns. My concern is if people were parking in bad spots, but they were, their plan is to have their vendors park in the gravel ODOT lot, which is not as highly used on the weekend because there's not as many commuters. So the vendors could park over there. So people coming and going from the market could park in the actual parking lot. But if the fire department had concerns, then that would probably be enough to say no. But I just feel like I think it's a good thing to do. I think it might be good to just take a little risk and just see what happens. But I mean, that's why I'm bringing it to you, because I know that I don't want to overthink it, but I also want to feel like we're not missing something that's going to be difficult. Yeah. Councilor Strobel.
Yeah.
I just think as you talk with the fire department, and I think it's a very, very, very valid concern, because I think about coming down is that Wade Creek then when across from the library? I
Mhm.
mean, you've got to slow down quite a bit on Saturdays because it is successful. You've got people parking over at the skate park essentially
Mhm.
and just walking straight across there as it is. So,
Mhm.
Line up along the streets.
yeah, along the streets and
Mhm.
everything. So, from the fire department standpoint, they've got to know how successful and what a great attraction that farmer's market is. And would they
Mhm.
want that planted right in front of the station there, especially if there's a call or something like that? I think how do you manage something like that? So I would really hope they would think this thing through
Uh-huh.
as well
Okay.
too.
Okay,
And it sounds like at this point, you having a discussion with the fire department
yes.
would be a good idea. if you could.
Yeah, so if I have a discussion with the fire department and they don't have concerns, I'd like to go ahead and sign it and say, yeah, go ahead and get ready and go do the farmer's market. But if the fire district does have concerns, then I could work with the farmer's market. Did I say that right? If the fire district has concerns, I'll work with the farmer's market to try to relocate that. Although we've kind of whittled down I even suggested like Clackamas River Elementary parking lot because, they start in May though, but on Saturday, there's nobody there. We just tried to brainstorm everything. And so I don't know if the fire department does not have concerns, would you be okay with it? Or do you still, what do you think?
I would be fine if they don't have concerns.
I still have a concern for the safety there. I can just see where it's going, but I mean, I'm one
Okay.
of four here, so.
I'd be fine with it if the fire department was.
Yeah, and I'm still on the fence with the equality thing.
Uh-huh.
It needs to be considered for all, not just the few.
That's one of them.
That's the only argument I have in this whole thing, because to me, we're setting a precedent to say, hey, they're okay, but everybody else don't. I don't want to go there. We're a city that works together all the time. So we need to open that door for everyone and not just the few. Even if it benefits our downtown, which it would. I admit the farmer's market right there would probably attract a lot of people. But I don't want to set a precedent that says only the farmer's market. I don't want to start that because that's always going to come back and haunt us in the future. And we've strived so hard to get equal across the board.
Well, and we don't have to just say that it's only for the farmer's market. It's just on Saturdays between these dates, this summer, between these hours, the farmer's market's going to be there. If you want to use it for other dates, other times, it just has to be approved through the city just like this. So we're not telling anybody else no. We're leaving that door open that they can use it, but the farmer's market, it's going to be reserved for them on these dates at these times.
And as long as we leave that door open,
Yeah.
I'm game.
And to be able to play the devil's advocate to his statement, we can't give precedence to the farmer's market on there because that would be showing favoritism to one place. You get to open it up for first come, first serve to reserve those dates.
And I think this first time around, we did that because the farmer's market was the first one that.
Yeah, I'm just saying for future going forward.
Yeah,
So.
no, I agree. I agree.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think in the sense that we make it equal, I'm fine with it. I
Mhm.
think it'll add to our downtown, and I'm always about bringing people in and making our town more vibrant. So, yeah, I gotta say,
Okay.
go ahead and do that as long as we're equal across the board and the fire department is okay. I think we've covered all the things that are a major concern to our community.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. And we have some little like event signs. Probably the fire district does too, to make sure there's no parking, or if we need to repaint the curb along the front side of the fire department to make sure that there's no misunderstanding about don't park there, we could do something like that. I'm guessing it's painted right now, but I need to be more observant. Anyway, okay, I'll check with the fire district tomorrow. If there's any concern that they have at all, then I'll reevaluate that with the farmer's market. And we will be very careful to, make sure that any requests that comes in, from because we have a lot of great organizations that work in the community. And if they need a place, I even thought about having, like you said, the grass might get a little wear and tear, but there's at least there's no sprinklers over there. So that'll be better. And this grass will stay nice and green as long as we don't have a super hot water shortage year. But yeah, I think it would be good. I think the the more that I've thought about it, I think it would be a positive thing to do. And I appreciate the feedback though, to make sure that we're evaluating any application we get fairly and equitably. And then I'll just see what the fire district says and how, if they had, what they would want the farmer's market to do if they're going to be operating out of there. So, okay.
Thank you. Appreciate
All
it.
right. Thank you.
Okay, and last on that list, well, I've got one thing added, but is the city manager's contract. And you have that.
Yeah, so the contract is included in the packet. This is the contract that we've used for the past 3 city managers now. Peter reviewed it again, our attorney, and didn't have any trouble with it as far as, how it's put together, how it's written, any of the legal aspects of it. I'm comfortable with it. And so if you guys want to discuss it, or if you had concerns or want to see any changes, you can do that. Otherwise, we just need a consensus to approve it. And then it will,
And we've sat down and chatted about this.
yep, I've talked with the mayor about it. We kind of went over some of the little points of it, but I'll just kind of stay out of it and let you guys discuss if you had questions or wanted to ask questions of the mayor about it or.
And I think council, you've all had a chance to review it. And we're very comfortable with our choice. Thank goodness for that. And do you have any questions regarding it? Does it seem reasonable all the way around?
Yeah, you're good, we're good.
Okay, great. Well, I think we're all on the same page. So you need a vote or a consensus? What do you need?
Yeah, how do you do consensus or should we do a vote?
Let's just have a vote.
Okay, how about a vote?
Great, let's do a roll call vote on that one.
Okay,
Okay,
to approve the,
can we have a motion in a second then?
there we go.
Yeah,
Move to approve the city manager's contract.
You got a
Second.
first? I got a second? Okay, go from there.
Counselor Hughes,
Aye.
Counselor Lickey,
Aye.
Counselor Strobel,
Aye.
Counselor Timbers,
Aye.
Mayor.
Aye. Thank you. That's great. And thank you, Melanie, for the work that you did. We
Yeah,
appreciate
thank you. Thanks for some great meetings.
it. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we are at the next citizen. Wait, I got one more thing to add. That's right. I brought down the question on the food cards and yeah, and it wasn't to deny Timbertown Grub or anything like that. My questions were on the liquor licenses that we're handing out. Are we doing our just due when we hand out liquor licenses to all the food carts? And when I say that, I mean, the food carts are open, and I know, I think it was 319 or 317 bill that they passed with handing out, but when I was reading over it, it says they have to be capped when they're handed out to go. But we didn't put any stipulations in that when we approved these. And are we making sure that we're covering all the bases when we hand out these liquor licenses? I know we have a food pod talked about coming in that'll be actually locked up. We can monitor that, we can secure that. But my fear is that we have these food carts going everywhere and we're issuing liquor licenses to them all over. And we're really not taking a bigger look at what that's going to entail for police services and making sure that they're getting the proper training from OLCC. And I called OLCC and they said, this is something you definitely have to be concerned with when you're doing that. I also called Sandy. Sandy does it through their police services. They hand out the liquor licenses and they deal with that, but they're very concerned with that as well. And they've made it in their pod that if people want to file for it, that's fine, but they have to go through the Sandy Police Department and make sure that everybody's got their training and everything copacetic. I tried to get a hold of Happy Valley, but nobody was in their office today.
Okay.
But that's just the conversation I want us to start having now instead of waiting till later on when we've got liquor all over this town. Just
Okay.
trying to, and I thought bring it up to council and Joel.
Well, yeah, your question was much deeper than mine, but mine was basically what are they selling it as capped or closed bottle versus open? Because that was the question I had when I saw that and I started thinking about it myself. It's, what kind of service are they providing there? And so if it's closed, I actually looked it up. It's closed. It says it's legal for them to sell it if it's a closed bottle. But they can't sell an open container without having a locked and secured facility for them to go into where you can control access. So, and that was just my question is why I wanted to talk more about it is how are they serving it and do we have it stipulated in that license?
And this was just a sign that OLCC make sure that all the vendors have out for their alcohol containers and explains about open containers versus closed containers. And I don't think I've seen any of them. And I think,
Yeah, I don't, so if you go to a food cart, and you buy a hot dog and you buy a beer, can you sit there and drink your beer and eat your hot dog, or you have to take it
No.
home?
From
Is
what
to go.
from what I read, it can't be consumed on the premises unless you have a controlled location.
that's right.
Okay.
That's right.
You can buy it just like you can from a store.
Uh-huh,
You just can't drink it on the premises.
okay. And I don't know if that's a city responsibility to enforce, or if that's a OLCC.
Well, at this point, it's the cities because we authorize the liquor license.
Mhm.
And that's why I was making a point of it now, because this is a lot more for us to take on. And I want to make sure we're ready for whatever it
Okay.
is we're doing with the food carts, because we're getting so many of them.
Yeah,
I
that-
counted up, I think we're at 17.
I was reading an article that actually talks about how the OLCC is looking at trying to identify for food carts. They haven't got it yet, but like different levels of like exposure or something like that. It's like up to like a class 4, level 4 or something, which would consider for kids and how they would control that. If it's within the visibility of the people selling it, can they control it? Those type of things, but it wouldn't be as strict as far as a lockdown facility, but they don't have those passed yet. And the current laws are that we would have to consider and make sure it's written into the licenses or however that works. I don't fully know the OLCC license process, but to make sure that they're not consuming it on premises without that controlled location and it's closed containers. I think it's, if we have some way to control that would be, where we have to start at.
Yeah.
So.
And I think it's just something for the city staff to look into right now.
Mhm.
And maybe we can get it honed in before we get going with this. So we make sure that we're covering all our bases and that we're
Okay,
able
sure.
to handle it.
Yeah, I will look into that. During COVID, when the restaurants were expanding out their sidewalk service, I had a phone number straight to the OLCC guy. But
Okay.
I'll have to see if I can find it. I think Tracy has the phone number, though. We can look into that, because I kind of thought that the OLCC license comes through the city. If we don't have a concern about it, we check the box that says we're just passing it on to OLCC. But let me look into that. So, yeah.
Mayor, one more question. Can you speak with Peter and find out what our liability as a city would be on for that? Since
Mhm.
we authorize license, I'd like to know what kind of liability and risk we're taking as a city as well. So,
Okay, sure.
All right. Thank you. Okay, we are at the next citizen committee group comment, and I have Carrie Kuntzman, is that right? Yeah. let's go ahead.
Thank you so much for letting me stand up here and speak to you all today. My name is Carrie Kunzelman, and I was born in Hillsboro, Oregon. My husband is Aaron Kunzelman, and he was born and raised in Lebanon. We have a 2-year-old daughter, and we live at the house on the corner of Hillway. On the corner of Hillway and Cemetery. And we bought our house in January of 2020, and since then we've had numerous negative incidences with neighbors speeding up and down our streets, messing with our property. The latest incident happened last Sunday. I woke up at 5:30 in the morning to my dog growling at a woman on our front porch, lightly tapping on our front door, very lightly so no one could hear. And later we looked at the footage, and it was a woman who was swaying back and forth, messing with our security camera. And we noticed after looking at the footage that she'd ran down from the apartment complex, was dancing in the streets, messing with another neighbor's, probably their mailbox. We don't know because the trees were in the way. And that's just the latest. About 4 weeks before that, we had a teenager that we later found out who it was doing some TikTok thing and tried to donkey kick our front door in, rang our doorbell numerous times at 2:30 in the morning. And like I said, I'm a mom. I work really hard. My husband and I both work full time. I'm 32 years old, and I'm the only person in my family that I know that even owns a home. I worked really hard to get this house that I live in, and I don't feel safe. And that's why I'm here today. I can provide footage. We've made police reports. I don't know what else to do. And to be honest with you, I don't want to feel like I have to pull a gun on someone and pull the trigger because I don't feel safe in my home. I don't really have anything else to say other than thank you for letting me stand up here and speak today. And I appreciate all of the work that you all do.
Yeah, we appreciate your concern. That's something we could look into. And I think that was the lighting issue that we were talking about earlier. Is that?
Yeah, this was a citizen that contacted me to try to get a street light in that area. Can we also speak to the chief about maybe trying to get some extra patrols in that area for now to see if we can at least get some presence in there? Maybe that might reduce some of it until we can figure out a better solution.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
I've noticed on runs when, running up the hill, up Cemetery, stuff being stashed in those on the fence line up there, people grabbing stuff out of yards and then, kind of hiding it up there along that fence line, to come back and pick up at a later time. We've
Mhm.
picked up laptops and stuff like that, from there, and then, got them to,
Okay.
got them back to the people that own them. But yeah, I mean, just something in that, in that area. I live in that area also, and, extra patrols, wouldn't be too much to ask.
No, definitely not. I know I've talked with deputies about that particular area and concerns that there's been in the area. It's typically, they typically know where or who they need to keep an eye on there. But sometimes it's hard to track them down. So thank you for sharing that. And we'll definitely talk with the
There's
with the
a few
deputies.
homeless camps down in there. And I brought this up to Denise before. she
Mhm.
left, that really need to be looked at. They're right down in the tree line there, right by, not the Ranger Woods, but the next set.
The next set, yeah.
They need to be cleaned up, or those trees need to be limbed up so that we have a better
Mhm.
view of what's
Mhm.
happening down in there. And that might be some of our problem.
And then, not last summer, but the previous summer, the property up where the water tanks, the water reservoirs are,
Yes.
there were some up there also.
Okay.
One more thing, she mentioned speeding in the area. Can you maybe just as an immediate relief to try to help with that, bring out the photo radar trailer and drop it on the street there, either through on Cemetery or rotate from Cemetery to Hillway or something?
Yeah, I can talk to Dawn about doing that. He's there. Part of our trailer is broken right now. And so he's trying to get the part that is not working, either a new part or get it repaired. And so, but yeah, and we're also working on he was looking for these signs that they show your speed. And then they transmit back. So they don't give tickets or anything, but they transmit back to us so we can see, okay, what the speed really is on, that the majority of people are going on that street. And then they're also mobile. So that's handy because we don't just plant them and expect them to stay there forever, but they can be moved around. And so that would be a good place to try those out also. But I'll talk about the speed trailer for there. And I'll talk to our deputies because I know that they are happy to help.
So can I ask her a question?
Yeah.
So the speeding, was that coming down Cemetery or was that coming down Hillway?
But it's most of the time it's coming down the way. And I go slower than normal. And my house is right there on the corner and people are right up behind me. I see people fly through, not even stop at the stop sign.
Yeah, I live off of Foothills and I see people coming up the hill, not stopping at that stop sign. So I know what you mean.
So we're going to look into that, and I hope this gives you some solace. We're definitely going to take it seriously, and we will definitely try to help with that problem. So thank you. All right. That's the end of that. And I have one more. Safa. Oh, you forgot what you're going to say? Come on, you got nothing? All right. We'll let you slide this time. Okay, we are at Mayor Council reports and comments. So I will start off with Charity again.
Nothing really more to report. I will be meeting with school board this week, so I'll come back next time with some information from the school district, what's kind of new and exciting there. And I just want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I love seeing people out here in person. It's awesome. And thanks to those who joined us via Zoom twice. It's great. And thanks staff for putting together a packet. And Melanie, I know I missed your phone call, but I appreciate you reaching out, every time we have a council meeting just to check in and see if we have any questions. It's very, very helpful. I didn't really this time, but very helpful for us. And
Good.
yeah, thanks guys for a good meeting.
Nothing much for me tonight. Thanks everybody for coming out, like you said, and appreciate everything you guys had to say, and appreciate staff. I know we're always throwing things a lot at you, and yeah, see you guys in a couple weeks.
Nothing further from me either. Appreciate the discussion tonight. Great discussion over all the stuff that we talked through. I felt like it was open and well thought out and great input from everyone. And also appreciate folks coming out, and thank you, staff. And Melanie, appreciate those phone calls, getting us prepped for this too.
Thank you.
So I'm going to start off on a sad note, and then I'm going to end on the good stuff, so I don't tear up here. But a local nonprofit for a lot of years has decided to dissolve the Performing Arts Group of Estacada. COVID killed the Performing Arts Group of Estacada. That's all I really can say about that. It was a really rough couple of years for us. I've been on the board of directors for 11 or 12 years. I can't remember exactly, but we really lost a lot not being able to put on productions, not being able to get community involvement. And it just, everything has a life cycle. And unfortunately, the Performing Arts Group of Estacada, its life cycle has come to an end the way it's currently set up. And it's a sad note because I know it's been 18 or 19 years they've been in this community putting on productions right up there at the community auditorium, radio shows at the community center, and just all in all involvement in the community, just pushing performing arts. And it was an amazing group, changed my family's lives, gave my kids a place to go because my kids are not athletes, and it gave them something. It gave them something, gave them a place to belong. And it was very heartbreaking, and it was a really tough decision, but unfortunately it was a decision that had to be made, and the timing was just there. So then now on a happy note, thank you guys so much for all that you do. I appreciate the conversations, stopping in at City Hall every time I can, every time I do. It's always a great experience. The information we get in these packets is outstanding. And then again, thanks everybody for coming in. Thank you for bringing your concern, because it's a concern a lot of people in that side of town, because we have one road coming in and out of all of our neighborhoods. So it's just a concern we all have, and I appreciate it. And thank you guys for the awesome discussion tonight. It's really good. The direction that we've been going the last couple of months has been amazing. Just the actual honest discussions. It's been really good, and it's been good for council. It's been good for me, and it's been good for the community to see us having these conversations. So thank you guys.
Thank you, Jerry. And on that note, I want to thank the audience, of course, for coming. I love to sit in front of people. I love to see your faces. I love to hear your issues. I love to help solve those issues. That's what I came here for. I also want to say thanks to staff for everything that you do, and the fact that you make time for us every night and keep us full of the information we need to proceed and do the job we're supposed to do. And on that note, I also want to tell Tony, happy birthday to your daughter, Lena. Oh, the mayor loves her. So on that, I want to say good night and have a good, happy week.